I'm here with Nico, a Canadian who just left Canada to come to live in Paraguay. And today we're going to talk about why Canadians should leave Canada before 2030. If you can please tell us, Nico, why is it important for Canadians to leave?
Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all. I'll speak for myself and my experience and why me and my fiance want to leave Canada. We had been talking about it for a long time. We've been together 6 years. We've been talking about it for at least 4 years, and the last 3 years have been very busy in terms of trying to figure out where to go. But why leaving? Multiple reasons. One was the weather. Obviously, Quebec weather is really cold in the winter, and a lot of changes in terms of weather. Which implies that you have to spend more money on different things for the winter, like winter tires or winter clothing, etc. And also the other main reason was for tax purposes. I'm in a tax bracket now in Canada that my income tax is between 30 to 40%, which is to me way too high for the money that I spend. I want to have, it comes back to freedom with the money that I earn. And I know that it's going to get higher in the next years. So obviously we want kids in the future, and we wanted to establish our families somewhere where there would be more freedom in terms of money, in terms of what you can do, what you can say. And with everything going on in Canada, we didn't think that it was the place where we wanted to stay and spend our lives. Although our family is there and our family's not moving, they're staying there and everything. But we felt like for our future, for those reasons, those main reasons, we wanted to leave. That's the main reason why we have decided to leave and decided to come to Paraguay. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. We're in Asuncion right now, and it's an amazing, amazing city, beautiful weather, which ticks the first box. Mm-hmm. And also for the tax, we can talk about it more, but it ticks the second box as well. So that, for me, those were the reasons why it was important to leave Canada.
What you've pointed out about taxes is something that we hear a lot from people. It's just getting tighter, right? And there are fewer loopholes today than before. And from what you hear, exit taxes are increasing too in Canada, right? Yeah. It's not getting any better. Now, what do you see in terms of like the future for Canadians that will not move abroad? Let's say they remain in Canada and they don't make the courageous decision that you made to come here, because it takes guts to do it, right? Hopefully not the worst, right? But you can just fill us in.
Yeah, obviously, everybody's different, right? So some people are very happy with the system in Canada. You pay taxes for our healthcare system, which is free, right? We have access to a free healthcare system, but there are its flaws. The healthcare system, some people are happy with it, some people are not. It is one of the big debates, and there's amongst a lot of other things. So some people are happy with the system. Some people are not going to leave. Some people are going to stay there. But for the people that maybe it's a thought in the back of their minds or have been thinking about it in the past couple of years, I think it's the best move. I think that obviously it's just getting worse, and I'm not the only one saying it. I've been, in the past 3 years when we've been talking about it, we've watched a ton of videos from you and from other people that do the same things as you, and everybody says the same thing, that Canada is getting worse in terms of government and all those issues over there. And in terms of taxes, you talked about the exit tax. I don't know if it's in place now, but I think they're talking about a 25, and don't quote me on that, but I think that I've seen that they're talking about a $25,000 exit tax for Canadians who want to exit Canada, which is, for me, another reason why I'd want to leave as soon as possible. I can understand, but it's hard for me to figure out why you would want to tax someone for leaving instead of finding ways to keep them.
Exactly.
Right? So for me, that's another big no-no that I wouldn't want to stay there. So people who are going to stay there, I guess you either really have to be happy with the government and the system and be comfortable with it. Or if you're not, or it's a thing that you've been thinking about, I think right now is a great moment. There's a lot of great options around the world for someone who wants to pay less taxes. Same thing with the weather. If you're not someone who enjoys, I know a lot of people in Quebec that hate winter, and you're kind of, your family is there, your friends are there, so you stay there because you were born there or you've been living there for a long time. But I think that for the weather as well, there's a lot of beautiful options in the places, in the countries where they offer tax breaks, either zero tax or lower tax systems that could help you in the future to be more free in terms of money, but also in terms of what you can do, as I said, what you can say, what you can post online on social media and stuff like that.
I like how you pivoted to the weather, because that's obviously a big selling point for snowbirds. Another thing that's very prevalent is the rising cost of living crisis in Canada. Now, in Montreal, real estate prices are very high, right? Just as high as Toronto, probably. And we have clients from Toronto, and they typically tell us that I don't want to keep paying 2,000 Canadian dollars for a little shoebox condo. It's too much. Now, what can you say about the cost of living comparison between Canada, where you live, in Quebec, and here, Asuncion, Paraguay?
Well, first of all, from what I've seen, a lot cheaper here on every single level. We can talk about real estate, we can talk about food, we can talk about transportation. Those are the three that I've experienced here now, that all three are less expensive than Montreal. So I live on the south shore of Montreal. Montreal is an island, obviously. There's North Shore and South Shore. Obviously, the prices are super, super high on the island of Montreal. I've never lived on the island of Montreal, but I know that, let's say for 2-bedroom apartment, well located in Montreal, depending on the construction, it could vary from $2,000 to $4,000 Canadian a month. And once again, don't quote me on that, but that's kind of what I've heard and seen. It varies a lot depending on the location. But on the south shore of Montreal, so we owned a home and a condo. So we rented out the condo and we lived in our home. We sold the condo recently this summer because we're planning to move. That's another thing that we can talk about, the fact that we have to sell everything. But our condo was a 2-bedroom, 820 square foot. So not a big place, not a small place, very well located on the city on the South Shore, where there's a lot of construction going on in the past 20 years, which have led people to move to that area. So the prices went really, 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 really high in the past years. So just that condo for a 2-bedroom, 800 square foot is selling right now between $380,000 to $400,000 Canadian, which is ridiculous, right? This is way higher than we talking about 15, 20 years back. A 3-story house with a yard and an in-ground pool would cost $250,000. So prices are very expensive. Our house, I speak for myself, we have a bungalow, so 2 stories. We have a big yard. We have 10,000 square foot yard, so it's a big yard and very well located. But those types of houses vary between $500,000 to $600,000. Very expensive. So that's just the mortgage. Obviously, there's the taxes that you have to pay, the city taxes. There's a welcome tax. I don't know if you have that in where you've been or if you're aware of it, but so when you move, you have to pay a welcome tax depending on the city where you live, and it's based on the house that you buy. So another tax. And so those are the prices right now. My condo, that was a 2-bedroom, I would rent it for approximately, a condo like that would rent around $2,000 a month for a 800 square foot 2-bedroom apartment, which is very expensive, right? To rent and not own that place. Some people like to rent, some people like to buy, but it's becoming a real problem because young people are not able to buy because of the inflation. You know, they've gathered some money in their savings, but because of the inflation and because of the whole real estate problem we had during COVID, young people the money they've saved is now not enough to be able to put it as cash down. So there's a lot of different issues regarding the prices of real estate, but that's one. Here, very, very cheap compared to Canada or to Quebec anyways. And for the same house here that you know, we've seen some beautiful houses, beautiful condos. I'm not too sure of the prices, but just the Airbnb for you know, we have a loft. It's beautiful, well located, perfectly well located. $30 a night.
It's nothing.
I mean, it's ridiculous. It's nothing. And to rent a place like that in Montreal would be probably $200, $300 a night.
I just want to add a quick point here.
Yeah.
Why I think this is happening. So what they want is to make you poor. Because when you're poor, you can easily be manipulated. They don't want wealthy people in Canada. Think about it. Wealthy people, they don't listen to the government. They don't want to. Poor people, you can control them more easily, right? And I think you had a mass influx of Asians into Canada over the past like 10 to 15 years, you know, massive amounts, you know. And especially British Columbia was affected by it, you know. But now also Toronto and Montreal, right? So it's just the whole country that's being affected by it. Now, you are leaving Canada this year or next year?
We're leaving, so we're planning on leaving next fall. So September, October 2025. So in a year from now.
One thing that you pointed out was about the difficulty associated with leaving the country, right? So very soon you may have to pay an exit tax of 25,000 Canadian dollars. I think they are putting this in place so you don't leave.
Yeah, obviously.
You know, they're just putting more obstacles in place to prevent people from leaving, which is perfect, right? Makes sense. It's not good for you.
Yeah.
And you've also told me before privately that if you wanted to leave Canada, you would actually have to sell your home unless you wanted to rent it out long term, right? So you pretty much have to choose. And I've heard from other Canadian clients that they had to close their companies, they had to leave their jobs, or like you, sell their homes, right? So these are big requests by the government. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, the process it's a complicated process. That's why, I mean, I've been taking the steps in the last 3 years to make sure that I'm aware of everything that I need to do. And the house is just one of the things, right? You have to sell. Basically, when you leave Canada, you exit Canada. So you resign your residency in Canada. You have to get rid of all of your belonging. Every asset that you own, you have to sell it, give it away, whatever. So as I said earlier, that's why we sold our condo this summer. We thought that, it was a good moment to sell, and we didn't want to renew a tenant for another year because we wanted to leave it next year. So that's why we sold that. The house, as you said, there's two options. You can either sell it because you have to get rid of it, or you can rent it long term. But it was an option. We thought about it, but it was just, it makes everything more complicated because you're not there, you're not on the ground. One of the most important things in real estate when you own, and that's one of my plans, that's something I've read about a lot as well. And that's why we had a condo, because we wanted to build on that. Something that's important in real estate is to be where you own. So if you own buildings, if you own apartments, single family units, whatever, it's important to be there and to know what's going on and to be close in case anything happens. So me being obviously, I don't know how many kilometers away, but on the other side of America, right? At the south completely, basically 12 hours away of plane, it makes it difficult. So I would have had to hire a company to make sure they manage my property. That's finding a company that you can trust because you're so far away. If anything happens, you're not just a 30-minute drive away, you're very far. You have to pack your bags and everything. So that's a tedious process, and we didn't want to go through it. We love our house. It's kind of, we bought it 2 years ago, and we bought it for the long term thing. But since we decided to move, and we figured out that it was easier to sell, which is sad because we love our home. We built everything inside. We never renovated everything to our liking. So it's very complicated. And apart from selling our home, you have to talk to a tax attorney, which is very, very important. For me, it wasn't that complicated because I'm not a very high net worth individual with a bunch of different bank accounts and a bunch of different assets, right? So for me, it's quite simple. I have to close my bank accounts. I have to make sure that I sell my home, sell my assets, even, my chairs, my dining room table, everything that I own, I have to sell. So that's going to be a process in the next year to make sure that we take care of that. So it is complicated, and that's why you have to think about, if you own anything, if you rent or everything, it's going to be a lot easier for you. But if you own things, it is something you want to think about in advance and plan out, the steps. For us, the first step was to get a residency here in Paraguay. One of the first steps was selling the condo to make sure that was taken care of. And now the next step is figuring out how we bring our animals here, because we have a dog and 2 cats. That's another thing that we have to figure out. We're not sure if we want to put them in the luggage bay on the plane. So we're trying to figure out a way. But that's another complicated thing. So if you have animals or kids or whatever, it's another thing that you have to think about. And then one of the last steps, if not the last steps, is going to be to sell the home and sell everything we have to make sure that then we can come down here and enjoy our life.
One of the things about selling an apartment or house in your case, right? If you pressure to sell, then it's never a good thing. And as you pointed out correctly, when it comes to just renting out an apartment, and let's say you do live overseas, how can you control if the work is done properly? It's just very difficult. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes it's very hard to make money with real estate. It's not easy to make money with it unless you have like multiple units in one building, mm-hmm. and you have, say, an agent who manages it, then that's easier, right? But oftentimes it's not a good investment, right? You obviously make money from the value appreciation. However, to make, real money, it's going to be hard with real estate, I think. Okay, do you have any final thoughts to pass on to Canadians looking to leave Canada, where you would say, here are maybe 2 to 3 things to be aware of before leaving the country?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a resume of what I've said. So I think the first thing that's really important is do your research. Do your research. It's really important to find people that you can trust. Obviously, without you, we were thinking about this week, me and my fiance. It would have taken a lot longer to be able to do everything that we've done here with you guys, with the help that you've brought, finding the right resources, where to go, just navigating everything. We're learning Spanish right now, so that's another barrier, obviously. Not a lot of people here speak English. It's not like Mexico, for example. There's a lot of people who speak English, a lot of tourism. Here it's a lot different. So you have to be able to navigate the system. So for that, you have to make sure that you find people you can trust that can help you through that process. Second thing, which goes along with it, is planning. I think planning the steps is really important. I don't think you have to rush it, but I think that if you say, now it's the time, we want to leave, we want to do it, wherever you go, whether if it's in Asia, Europe, South America, whatever, there's a lot of different options. I think that you have to plan your steps of how you want to do it, when you want to do it, and, start with the small little steps. As I said, start with the first steps of doing your research, finding someone you can trust, speaking with them, and then planning the rest. And when I talk about, resources and doing your research, it's also with people within your country. So for the tax attorneys that you need to speak with to make sure that everything is planned out and you don't miss anything, because you don't want to miss anything on your end. And also making sure that, as I said, you're well surrounded for everything that you need to do. If you're employed, if you're self-employed, whatever, that can bring a lot of difficulties and complexity to the project. And last thing I would say would be trust the process. You've started that process for a reason, and that's what we've done. It's a lot more complicated than I thought it would be. When I started looking 3 years ago, I thought it would take, I thought the next year it would be gone. So trust the process. Is going to take a while. It is a tedious process, but you'd rather it be tedious and complicated and being helped by the right people than rushing it and doing some missteps along the way and probably maybe regretting your choice or regretting the location where you're going to move or whatever. So do your research, be well surrounded, and trust the process.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I appreciate it. If you're interested in leaving Canada for Paraguay, please contact us. You should see our website displayed right on the screen. We also added a link in the description of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you again, Nico, for your time. I appreciate it. And we see you guys in Paraguay.